Non-oil sector expanded by 3.94% in the first quarter of 2026 compared to 3.19% in comparable period of 2025, reflecting a major rebound in the agricultural sector and resilient performance now in the industrial and real estate sector. A breakdown indicates that agricultural sector, which was nearly stagnant at 0.07% in the first quarter of 2025, was now quadrupled to a growth of 3.15%, and in the first quarter of 2026. Boosted by improved crop production, the industrial sector expanded 3.50% in the first quarter of 2026 as against 3.42% in comparable period of 2025. The services sector grew by 4.31% in the first quarter of 2026 and slightly lower than 4.33% in the first quarter of 2025. However, the services sector remained the largest contributor to the aggregate GDP at 57.73% in the period under review, as against 57.50% in the corresponding period of 2025. Well, my next guest is popularly called the Export Doctor. Is Dr. Bamidele Ayemi-Bald, lead consultant and CEO of 3T Impex Consulting. Thank you so much, and happy Salah celebrations to you.
Same to you. Good afternoon.
And thank you so much for being on the program. I think I'd like you first to help us react to the performance of the non-oil sector in general to the GDP figures, as it has to do with the non-oil space, because that's specifically my focus. What do you think with the performance? Are we performing as well as we should in that space?
Generally, the non-oil sector, as reported in GDP, is different from the non-oil export sector. So the non-oil sector in GDP has always been dominating. If you always look at the contribution of the oil to non-oil to the GDP, the non-oil is always, which is why people have said, look, we need to diversify our economy to be able to increase activity in the non-oil. If Nigeria is not going to grow a GDP, if we are going to achieve the $1 trillion economy that the government is targeting, we definitely must take the non-oil sector seriously. Now, in taking the non-oil export seriously, we will now able to dovetail into non-oil export, because there's no way you will grow the activity in the non-oil activity. They complain seriously about the energy costs, which of course the Strait of Hormuz and what is happening in the Middle East is affecting, which is of course the Strait of Hormuz and what is happening in the Middle East is affecting, which is affecting their cost of production and of course of moving the goods. And so that is
the non-oil sector monitor as produced by you. Tell us, what do you really intend to achieve with this? What details would this be?
Jobless growth. We are seeing an increase in the volume of export, but the number of businesses exporting is declining, which means jobs creation as a result of we'll be able to know if they are maintaining it, but at least the data that suggests increase in Nigeria rejection is also suggesting decline in Nigeria rejection. So I want to commend the government in that regard.
Question for me around that space. We've talked about the Lekki ports. I don't know how far we've gone with that. Also the Lekki ports. I don't know how far we've gone with that. Also the One ports and all ports. I don't know how far we've gone with that. Also the One ports and all of that. Moving this concentration away from Apapa. Moving this concentration away from Apapa ports.
Generally, from Warri to Port Harcourt to across river, we need to get those. From Warri to Port Harcourt to across river, we need to get those ports working significantly so that we avoid this concentration risk that we're currently faced with Tinkan. And the fact that even the infrastructure there are not being well upgraded is also a challenge and a constraint that we're having. I think if we're able to diversify, what that will do for businesses is going to reduce the cost. I shouldn't be manufacturing goods in South and moving into Lagos, because most of the time the vessel that I'm targeting does not call the port in those axes because of the movement of goods. Those axes significantly reduced, and most of those vessels are coming to Lagos, so I end up hauling to Lagos. that is increasing my cost of shipment and cost of business, and that is also not making Nigeria competitive. So if we can diversify the port infrastructure, I believe it's going to significantly contribute to Nigeria competitiveness as far as export and trade is concerned.
All right, finally now, AFCFTA again comes to my mind because every time we have this conversation, I'm expecting a lot from that agreement. But I don't know, with what I've seen, I don't know how far we've gone. You tell us where we are with regards to that, because I seem to be concerned. Just recently, the president was in Rwanda and also was in Nairobi, Kenya, for meetings and all of that, Africa France meeting, and also the African CEOs Forum, and a lot of discussions about how African countries can also, support each other with regards to trade and investment. I want to ask you where we are, particularly with implementation.
We are moving at a snail's speed, a very slow pace. We can do a lot better. I think, I don't know what the plan of the new head of the AFCFTA Secretariat, the National Coordinating Office is. And the reason I say that is, I think it's good we are very strategic on what we want to do. Sometimes we scatter all our effort in different things. Nigeria can say, look, we have priority products, NDPC have priority product. Out of the priority product, which of them is going to Africa? Identify 2 or 3 countries we want to deal with in Africa. Have a solid conversation with the Chamber of Commerce, something similar to NASIMA in those countries, and have a B2B meeting of businesses, of the transaction we want to do, and government midwife the transaction to ensure we get moving with AFCFTA. That is similar to what GTI is supposed to do, but GTI was not very successful. Do you know that even when we launched AFCFTA, some people that ship the good arriving at destination, discovering that the product at destination is not fully duty-free. And this is supported by the government. So the question I'm asking myself is, who are those that spoke to these people and saying that this product is duty-free in that country? But the data is available online for you to know product duty-free in a particular country. And that has discouraged a lot of people, even within SME and businesses in Africa under AFCFTA. I think the government needs to get its priority right on AFCFTA. Let's decide on 2 or 3 countries we want to work with, where we can ship by sea to not by air. Number 2, and decide on and fix the problem. We need to fix the problem of logistics. We have fixed the problem of payment with PAPs. The fintech is already making payment a lot easier in Africa. Government needs to support private businesses who have vessels for oil, to also invest in vessels that can carry container from West to Central to Southern and Eastern Africa. I believe with this, we might get AFCFTA moving.
The free tariff with China, what about that? Any update with regards to that?
No, I saw a news saying that we have exported to China under that tariff, and we export bone pellet, cow bone, which for me is sharing and commendable. Okay. I think Nigeria needs to take advantage of the opportunity to China. By the way, just 2-year window. It's 2-year window. But after 2 years, they will negotiate with Nigeria. You have enjoyed our market. Yeah. Now we want to come into our market duty-free. Yeah. They are currently doing 30% in Nigeria in terms of our trade, import into Nigeria, 30% from China. I'm not sure if man is interested in that conversation after 2 years of free access into China. And Trump is also saying they are also going to ensure that it's a 2-way trade next year, not like what we are doing now. So the China free trade is one way. The in terms of tariff free, the AGUA is one way. Trump is saying it has to be 2-way. China is saying after 2 years it's going to be 2-way in terms of tariff free. I'm not sure we are ready for that conversation. And I'm not sure man is going to allow that to happen unless we have a modality on how we are going to restrict it to a few products that will not impact local manufacturers.
Dr. Bamidele Ayimibo, lead consultant, CEO, 3T Impex Consulting. Thank you so much for joining us. Do enjoy the rest of your holiday.
Thank you very much for having me, and bye for now.
All right.